You logged an IT ticket for a six-figure crash? Jacob McGuire's smile didn't reach his eyes. He tapped the dead MacBook with one manicured knuckle, then pointed at Jennifer Dougan across the table. Tell you what, get it running before the investors join, and I'll marry you on this floor. A ripple of laughter moved through the glass-walled boardroom. The city burned white behind them. 40 stories up, Lake Michigan, a sheet of steel. Kimberly Bailey folded her arms. Elizabeth Trimble smirked. Jason Weeks checked the wall clock. Donald Enright raised his brows. Victor Rivera watched a little too closely. On the round table, screwdrivers, open logic boards, stacked hundreds like trophies, and two screens reflecting Jennifer's calm face. Jacob, tailored navy suit, perfect hair, leaned in, enjoying the audience. Clock's ticking. Jennifer rested her palms on the table, posture steady. Then let's stop guessing and start checking the trust chain. 10 minutes to a live pitch worth $10 million. The prototype deck was encrypted and local to the machine. No cloud fallback by design. If the laptop stayed dead, McGuire Innovations would bleed credibility on 3 continents before lunch. McGuire's firm was a skyline brand. Frosted glass, museum lighting, a lobby that smelled like money and victory. Jacob's name opened doors. His temper closed careers. Staff wore their prestige like badges. Jacob wore it like a weapon. For an hour, the elite team had tried everything. Safe mode, recovery keys, hot swaps. Each boot died mid-verification with the same curt verdict. Integrity chain broken. Nothing past the BIOS handshake. Nothing. Before we continue, click subscribe, like this video, and tell me in the comments where you're watching from. Your support helps us bring more captivating stories, and trust me, you won't want to miss them. Jennifer, black slacks, white blouse, hair pinned clean, came up from the support floor with a canvas kit and no entourage. She took the seat Jacob had theatrically denied her and started reading the hex stream with the attention you give a confession. Not hardware, she said softly. Your pre-boot security is rejecting its own master. Kimberly exhaled. Elizabeth rolled her eyes. Jacob scoffed for the room. She thinks it's the code. Not thinks, Jennifer said. Knows. Her left hand opened a terminal. Her right hand slid in a sterile USB. The air in the boardroom changed. On the screen, a watermark flickered for a breath. Letters she hadn't seen since the acquisition erased them. JD. Jacob didn't notice. Jennifer did. The watermark, JD, blinked and vanished like a reflex she'd trained herself to forget. Jennifer kept her face neutral. She let the terminal window expand, fingers steady on the keys, while the boardroom air pressed in. Behind her, shoes shifted. A watch clicked. The skyline breathed white light across the glass. Status? Jacob asked, impatient velvet. He was close enough that she could smell the espresso on his breath. Mapping the trust chain, she said. Don't touch anything. He didn't move, but his presence insisted. Kimberly and Elizabeth traded a look that said this was amusing until it wasn't. Jason stood at parade rest, eyes on the wall clock. Donald counted outcomes. Victor watched the way a man watches the door he hopes won't open. Years before this room, Jennifer thinks, there was a different table. 5 years earlier, a storefront above a laundromat on 79th, a single oscillating fan, and a whiteboard crowded with arrows. Dougan Dynamics was 2 people, 8 laptops, and an algorithm with a spine, an encryption lattice that braided keys instead of stacking them, flexible under pressure, rigid under attack. Her father would nap in the armchair by the window, baseball game murmuring from a tiny radio. When he woke, he'd ask the same question he'd asked since her first Linux install at 13. "Does it sing yet, Jenny?" "Almost," she'd say, and slide another test vector into the mouth of her code. In the boardroom now, she launched a forensic script from her sterile drive. Hex scrolled. She read it, like choir notation. "Pre-boot verification failed at stage 3, she narrated for the room. "Not natural. The rejection is timed." "What does that mean?" Jacob asked. "It means someone taught your BIOS to distrust its own cert." She didn't turn. "Not a crash, a push." Elizabeth's smirk thinned. Kimberly folded and refolded her arms. Victor's gaze flicked to the window and back. Back then, before the acquisition, Dougan Dynamics had a list of paying clients you could write on a napkin and still have space for dessert. Hospitals, a mid-sized bank, one bold NGO. Then her father's stroke came like a hijack. Rehab bills, medication, insurance co-pays that bled around the edges. She ran the numbers until they turned into Morse code. Sell or drown. McGuire Technologies made its offer with elegant paperwork and a calendar invite. "Join the family," the VP had said, "all teeth and empathy, and we'll carry your vision farther than you ever could alone." The contract promised her a seat on a steering committee, pending due diligence. On page 11, in the shadow of a clause labeled "Streamlined Integration," her name started to disappear. The day they signed, she shook hands with men who didn't look at her. She went home with a check that solved one problem and created 1,000 that didn't have lines yet. At the boardroom table now, she isolated the signature block, G.D.D., buried under McGuire's brand veneer. It was a ghost watermark she'd left in the early builds as a heartbeat check. No one at McGuire had ever noticed. Until now. "Where are we?" Jacob pressed, patting his tie flat. "You're burning minutes." Jennifer split the disk map. "Recovering the lattice. If I can realign the braid, the system will stop rejecting itself." "Speak English," Donald murmured. "She's already speaking your survival," Jason said under his breath. Jennifer toggled into raw memory. There it was, a repeating pattern, narrow, elegant, malicious. Soft kill code set to trigger at boot plus 90 seconds. It didn't look like an amateur's work. It looked like confidence. "Who else touched this machine?" she asked without looking away. "In the last 24 hours. "Everyone," Jacob said. "It's the demo laptop." "Who exactly?" He bristled at the audit tone, then gestured broadly. "The team. Me. Facilities moved it. Prep filmed B-roll yesterday." A beat. "Victor handled the investor media kit." Victor smiled with only the bottom of his face. "I packaged it. Didn't touch your sacred BIOS." She dropped a hash into her script and let the system compare it to the last clean build she kept. Quietly, privately, from a lifetime ago. The mismatch lit up like sirens. Her father again, a softer room, night nurses in the hall, the medicinal smell that never quite left the curtains. His fingers were cold and strong when he gripped her wrist. "You build it right, Jenny. They'll try to steal it twice," he'd said, voice thinned to a thread. "So you build a way to know what's yours." When rehab threatened to outpace cash, she'd phoned a recruiter she didn't like and taken a job she didn't want. McGuire's badge printer spat out a new identity. IT Specialist 2. The first month she kept her head down and rebuilt her father's swallow reflex with a straw and stubbornness. The second month, she learned the names of every night guard on the 38th floor and the sound of this building when it was empty. The third month, she mapped McGuire's stack from power on to investor pitch because grief demanded something to diagram. Now all of that practice pressed into her fingers. Jacob leaned closer. "If this is a joke, it's expensive." "It's not a joke," she said. "It's sabotage." Kimberly flinched at the word. Elizabeth's smirk left completely. Jason's mouth opened and closed. Donald chose stillness. Victor's eyes became winter. Jennifer didn't wait for the defense. She booted into her own rescue layer, a side door she'd written for hospitals that couldn't afford downtime. A blue field bloomed. Lines of white text marched across it like soldiers. She spun up a clean supervisor, severed the poisoned handshake, and offered the BIOS a signature it recognized from before someone taught it to doubt. The laptop blinked. The fan smoothed. A progress bar stretched and held like breath. Jacob's impatience sharpened. "Can you just—" "5 seconds," she said. He went silent because the room did. Lake Michigan flashed silver across the glass. Somewhere, a phone vibrated, and then remembered not to. 4, 3, 2. The bar completed. The system asked for its master. Jennifer entered a key no one in this room knew existed, one she'd buried under versions and versions of McGuire gloss. It took. The desktop loaded to a heartbeat tempo. Folder icons steadied. The presentation thumbnail bloomed like a rescued file from a burning room. In the tiny reflection of the screen, she saw her own face. Neither victory nor relief. Just confirmation that math, when done cleanly, keeps its promises. Jacob exhaled a breath he hadn't admitted he was holding. "Good," he said, trying on authority again. "Now, send the deck to the projector, and—" "Not yet," she said, not unkind. She opened the event log one more time, followed the footprints back to the origin of the tamper. Credentials. Timestamps. A workstation ID. Her script wrote it down without judgment. Victor's jaw shifted a millimeter. Jennifer clicked the projector icon, and the slide deck took the wall, flawless. Investors would be joining in minutes. The machine was ready. The room was not. "Who did it?" Jacob asked, voice low. "We'll cover that after you close," she said. "You have a meeting to win." He swallowed whatever pride tasted like in that moment, and nodded once. Around them, the team found their rehearsed smiles. The weight in the room rearranged itself, not lighter, just honest. Jennifer unplugged her sterile drive and slid it back into the canvas kit. She let her knuckles rest a second on the warm aluminum of the laptop, like the quick forehead touch you give a child before pushing them through a classroom door. Kimberly cleared her throat. "How did you even see it that fast?" Jennifer almost said, "Because it's mine." Instead, she gave them the truest answer that fit inside a breath. "Every system speaks," she murmured, eyes still on the code. "It just needs someone who remembers its language." The room still hummed with the ghost of applause that hadn't yet happened. The laptop purred softly, alive again, obedient under Jennifer's hands. Jacob stood at her shoulder, pacing the perimeter of tension like a man afraid to sit still in his own success. Jennifer's eyes flicked across the event logs. The numbers spoke to her like code always did, steady, precise, impartial. But there, in the lattice of restored data, something pulsed where it shouldn't. A pattern. Recurring timestamps. Every one aligned to system access at 2:17 a.m., far outside standard hours. 4 identical interruptions. 4 identical credentials. Her breath slowed. Verivra admin. Victor's digital fingerprints were everywhere. She kept her voice calm. Did anyone else log in overnight? Jacob barely looked up from straightening his cufflinks. IT backups run every Sunday. Automated. Why? Because someone wasn't automated. That got his attention. He leaned closer, his reflection joining hers in the screen's pale glow. Meaning? Jennifer tapped the key sequence that isolated the anomalies, the visual interface filled with cascading code, strings of mismatched authentication, command line injections, and a shadow script looping through the same function. It's deliberate, she murmured. This isn't system fatigue or update decay. Somebody rewrote your trust key in real time. Kimberly frowned. In English? Someone sabotaged the laptop, Jennifer said plainly. Timed the failure to look natural. The word sabotage landed like a dropped wrench. For a heartbeat, no one breathed. Behind her, Victor shifted, the subtle kind of movement that came from people deciding whether to laugh or defend. You're jumping to conclusions, he said, chuckling under his breath. Every engineer here knows those access tags rotate. Probably a misfire. Jennifer didn't look at him. Misfires don't hide themselves. Jacob studied her with the curiosity of a man not yet sure if he should believe her or fire her. Show me. She magnified the last log file. A sliver of binary stood out, too clean, too deliberate. Embedded in it was a short text string, written like an echo note left behind by whoever had installed the script. Control the failure. Control the company. The letters glowed on screen, small and elegant, but they froze the air. Jason leaned forward, whispering, "Who writes something like that?" Jennifer's pulse ticked in her throat. Someone confident no one would ever find it. She highlighted the encryption shell. Noticing the format, compact, proprietary, corporate. Her mind traced the pattern, stealth-built for insider access. Whoever planted it had top-tier credentials, and she knew exactly whose signature matched the command syntax. Victor Rivera. It wasn't just the late-night access or the code's structure. It was the arrogance. He always left traces of flourish in his back-end work. Double-commented lines, clean breakpoints, identical spacing between loops. His fingerprints weren't technical, they were stylistic. Like a calligrapher signing his name on the margins. Jennifer forced herself to breathe evenly. The room had turned dense, watching her, waiting. Jacob tilted his head. "You're sure?" "Sure enough to bet your company on it," she said. Victor laughed louder this time, nervous energy disguised as humor. "That's a bold claim, IT girl. Maybe focus on the presentation instead of spinning conspiracy theories." "I'm not spinning anything." Jennifer turned to him for the first time, her gaze steady, unreadable. "You accessed this system 4 times in 48 hours, always after everyone left." "I was syncing files. You can check with network operations." "I already did," she replied. "Their log ends at midnight. You came in at 2. Jacob's expression shifted, a crack in the marble. "Victor," he said slowly, "you told me you left early last night." "I did," Victor snapped. "She's reading it wrong." Jennifer's fingers danced over the keys, pulling up external routing data. A corporate IP tag flashed red. Foreign origin, encrypted relay. Arc42.capital.network. Her breath caught. Arcanix Capital, a rival investment firm. One that had been trying to buy McGuire Technologies for months. Jennifer's voice dropped, quieter but sharper. "This code reports to an external relay owned by Arcanix." "What?" Jacob's tone broke. That's a competitor. Exactly. They'd profit if your investors lost confidence today. The truth started connecting in Jacob's mind. The crash, the timing, the quiet smirk on Victor's face during the meltdown. Victor stood straighter, smile gone. You're bluffing. Jennifer pressed a key. The monitor changed, displaying a timeline of system access and transmissions sent out during each failure attempt. The last ping was from Victor's ID, sent 12 minutes before she walked into this room. The silence thickened until it hummed. Outside the glass, the Chicago skyline flickered under clouds. Jacob exhaled through his nose, measured. Jennifer, he said, voice low, fix it, whatever it takes. She nodded once. Her mind was already moving faster than fear could catch it. To fix it, I need to rebuild the root chain from the motherboard up. What does that mean? It means everything on this drive gets wiped, unless I isolate the infection manually. And we're on a countdown. She pointed to the digital clock on the wall. 15:22 minutes until the live investor broadcast. If we don't go live with clean data, Arcanix wins by default. Jason muttered a curse. Kimberly pressed a hand to her forehead. Elizabeth stared at Victor, realization dawning slow and furious. Victor tried to step forward. Let me handle it. Jennifer cut him off with a quiet firmness that drew the room's focus back to her. No, you've handled enough. Her fingers blurred again, pulling the hard drive's partition map, isolating foreign sectors, redirecting power. She could feel Jacob's eyes on her, see the battle between doubt and belief, flickering behind his composure. Lines of code poured across the screen like rain against glass. Every second was a bead of pressure. Somewhere behind her, someone whispered a prayer to deadlines. The lights flickered once, twice, and then dimmed. The laptop screen blinked black. A hum of panic rippled through the room. Oh, come on, Jacob hissed. Not now. Jennifer stared at the dead monitor. The hum of the building dropped to a low throb. Even the fluorescent lights above buzzed unevenly. Power fluctuation, suspiciously timed. Jason glanced at the wall clock. 1700 flat. 17 minutes until the live broadcast. Victor stepped back toward the exit, too casually. Looks like the grid tripped. I'll check the... Stay here, Jacob said sharply. Jennifer inhaled deeply, steadying her heartbeat against the silence. They're trying to trigger a hard shutdown before we can trace them. Can you stop it? Jacob asked. She flexed her fingers once, like a pianist before a recital. Maybe. Then she turned the laptop over, loosened the bottom panel, and said the words that shifted the room's pulse. Then we start from the motherboard. The room fell still except for the faint click of her screwdriver and the muffled thud of rain beginning against the glass. 17 minutes. One machine. One woman between sabotage and collapse. The screwdriver clicked against metal, sharp as a metronome for the rising panic in the room. Jennifer's hands moved with surgical precision, prying the laptop's backplate open, while the executives froze around her like an audience that wasn't sure if they were watching a miracle or a meltdown. The smell of warm circuits filled the boardroom, ozone, dust, faint copper. Kimberly and Elizabeth stood shoulder to shoulder near the window. Elizabeth's whisper cut through the quiet. She's actually opening it. Kimberly folded her arms. She's either a genius or suicidal. On the table, neat piles of $100 bills sat beside a scattering of screwdrivers, processors, and exposed wires. A strange altar to both capitalism and circuitry. Jennifer didn't look up. "The system's code is fine," she said, voice level as she detached the motherboard panel. "It's the BIOS security layer. Someone rewrote it to reject its own encryption key." Jacob McGuire's reflection glinted in the glass wall. He was standing rigid behind her, arms crossed, his voice deceptively calm. "You're telling me my company's laptop doesn't trust itself?" Jennifer connected a portable power source, the blue LED blooming across her fingertips. "Not trust. Reject. It's like teaching your own guard dog to attack you." Jason whistled under his breath. "That's poetic." Jacob didn't smile. "That's expensive." Jennifer ignored them both. Her fingers worked in rhythm, reconnecting power and bypassing the onboard CMOS. She spoke more to the machine than the room. "This isn't a glitch. Someone embedded a root instruction at startup, an artificial loyalty test." Donald frowned. "English, please." "She's saying," Kimberly translated softly, "someone tampered with the company's brain." Jennifer slid her flash drive into the exposed USB port, a matte black device marked only with faint initials. JD. "This will help it remember who it is." The screen flickered, faint, then glowed a weak gray. A matrix of characters appeared, lines of hexadecimal streaming upward like a code waterfall. Jennifer's eyes moved too fast to follow. "I'm running a deep-level scan. The infection's rooted beneath the OS. I'll isolate the foreign call functions." Jacob's patience was thinning. "This is absurd. You're going to make it worse." Jennifer didn't even glance up. "You already did." The retort landed heavier than she intended, but it stopped him cold. For a heartbeat, the room was silent except for the hum of the reawakening machine. "Mr. McGuire," she continued, softer now, "the only reason this company still has a chance is because your saboteur underestimated me." Her tone wasn't arrogance, it was math, calculation. Confidence earned, not borrowed. Elizabeth shifted. "You mean Victor?" Jennifer's eyes flicked toward him briefly, then back to the screen. "We'll confirm that soon enough." Victor gave a tight smile. "You really think I'd risk my career for this circus?" "You already did," Jennifer murmured, mimicking Jacob's earlier phrase. She tapped a command, and the screen shifted again. White lines of progress filling from left to right, revealing layers of system architecture no one in the room recognized. "What is that?" Jason asked. "Not McGuire code," she said. "Mine." Jacob stepped closer, the tension in his shoulders unmistakable. "You mean to tell me you're running unauthorized software on my machine?" Jennifer finally looked up. "It's the only software that can see what yours is refuses to." She returned to typing before he could respond. "I built these diagnostic tools years ago, before you bought Dougan Dynamics." The name hit him like a delayed echo. "Dougan Dynamics?" Her fingers paused briefly above the keys. "It's where this encryption was born, before your lawyers renamed it McGuire Secure Chain." Jacob said nothing. The executives looked at each other, the weight of her revelation sinking in like static. For the first time, the imbalance of power in the room felt unstable, like gravity deciding who it preferred. The laptop emitted a low tone as her custom interface loaded, a black screen with white text reading JD Recovery Mode V3-2. Authorized access granted. Jason blinked. "I've never seen that before." "You weren't supposed to," she said. The scan deepened. Jennifer's custom code burrowed through the system's logic, like a surgeon searching for the exact artery that bled. Her lips moved in quiet rhythm with the numbers scrolling by. Binary checksum, hash verification. Each step a verse in a language only she truly spoke. Jacob's voice broke through the rhythm again, tighter now. "What are you seeing?" "A trail," she said, "an injected pointer. Whoever sabotaged this wanted it to fail exactly 17 minutes before broadcast. They programmed the failure to look organic, to mirror random corruption." "That's specific," Kimberly said softly. Jennifer nodded. "It's efficient and desperate." The progress bar froze. A faint alarm tone sounded from the terminal. Short, sharp. "Come on," she whispered, typing faster, overriding automated safeguards. "Is that normal?" Donald asked. "No," Jennifer said. "It's talking back." Lines of code flashed red, fighting her input. It wasn't just corrupted. It was active. It was defending itself. She pivoted to command line mode and hit enter. The screen went black again, then blinked alive with a rush of cascading data. Faster now, the binary scrolling at unreadable speed. Her reflection blurred against the moving light. Victor took a cautious step closer. "Maybe you should stop before you fry it for good." "Step back," Jennifer said evenly. "Or I will." Jacob's voice cracked slightly. Jennifer, but she was already somewhere else, inside the machine, inside the rhythm of zeros and ones, and the faint hum of her own pulse aligning with the power surge. The executives could only watch. Kimberly bit her lip. Elizabeth clasped her hands tight against her chest. Even Victor stopped talking. The only sound was Jennifer's steady typing and the rising whir of the fan as the system fought for control. The lights overhead flickered again, as if the building itself was nervous. Then, the screen steadied. The red lines froze, then shifted to white. Jacob leaned forward. "What just happened?" Jennifer didn't look away from the display. "It's surrendering." She executed one final command, typing her initials into the system authorization field. J. Root. The laptop emitted a soft, single beep. The kind of sound no one noticed until they realized it meant success. Jennifer leaned back, exhaling a breath she hadn't realized she'd been holding. The screen glowed pure and steady, displaying a single prompt. Integrity restored. Silence wrapped the room. Jacob blinked, unsure whether to applaud or apologize. Jennifer unplugged the flash drive, slid it into her pocket, and whispered, more to the machine than anyone else, "Got you." The soft beep still hung in the air when Jennifer pressed the power button. The laptop rebooted cleanly this time. No flicker, no hesitation, just the confident hum of hardware finally trusting its own reflection. The executives leaned in like witnesses to resurrection. On the glossy screen, the company's startup logo shimmered to life, glowing white against black. Then, for a fraction of a second, too brief for most eyes, another mark appeared beneath it. JD Encryption Systems, 2018. A watermark, faint but unmistakable. Jennifer's breath caught. Jacob's did too. The room seemed to shrink around that brief pulse of truth. "Did anyone else see that?" Jason asked, his voice the first to break the silence. Elizabeth blinked. JD. Encryption. Kimberly frowned, her eyes darting from Jennifer to Jacob. Victor's face went still, a little too still. Jacob stepped closer, his tone cautious but charged. "What did that just say?" Jennifer's fingers hovered over the keyboard, but her voice was even. "It's nothing important." "Don't lie to me," he said softly. There was no edge now, just the quiet dissonance of a man realizing he'd been standing in front of a door he never knew was locked. JD Encryption Systems. That's you. Her eyes met his for the briefest moment, and then she looked away. Let's just finish your meeting, she said. Jacob's lips parted, but no words followed. Behind him, Kimberly whispered, Wait, she built this system? Elizabeth replied under her breath, Looks like the janitor's got the keys to the kingdom this time. Jason almost smiled, but didn't. Donald simply exhaled, low and long, as if he'd just witnessed something that would echo past the day's schedule. The balance of the room had shifted. Power didn't leave Jacob with noise. It leaked quietly through silence. Jennifer turned back to the screen. The system was running smoother than ever. Every diagnostic light glowed green. She connected the HDMI cable to the projector, and the wall came alive with the clean blue corporate presentation deck. McGuire Innovations logo, perfect and uncorrupted. Jacob hovered behind her, words caught between awe and pride. It's flawless, he murmured. Jennifer replied without turning around. It always was. Her voice was calm, not cold. It carried neither bitterness nor apology, only fact. On the screen, slide transitions ran smoother than silk. The system logs scrolled beneath the surface like obedient currents. Every motion, every calculation obeyed her. Jacob crossed his arms slowly. You could have told me, he said, voice quieter now. I tried once, she said, a long time ago, but you didn't see me then. He opened his mouth to defend himself, then stopped. There was no defense that didn't sound smaller than the truth. He watched her work, the movement of her hands, deliberate, confident, economical. No hesitation. The same woman he'd mocked 20 minutes ago now commanded his boardroom, his staff, his system, and somewhere deep down he knew she'd built more than code. She'd built his stability. Victor shifted uneasily near the window, his gaze flicking toward the clock. The broadcast was scheduled to start in 4 minutes. Jennifer's voice broke the tension. Upload complete. She closed the terminal and stood, smoothing her sleeves. The projector's feed showed the opening slide. Investor Presentation, McGuire, Innovations, Q2 Forecasts, and Global Expansion. Jacob rubbed the back of his neck, still watching her. You understand what this means, he said quietly. Yes, Jennifer replied, folding her flash drive back into her pocket. It means your system works again. No, he said, stepping closer. It means it was never mine. Her eyes flicked toward him, unreadable. Ownership is a legal term. Functionality isn't. He almost smiled, not from humor, but from recognition. You built this, didn't you? Her pause was long enough to say everything her words wouldn't. Finally she spoke, voice calm and clipped. Let's just finish your meeting. The executives exchanged uncertain glances. The air had changed. There was no mockery left, no nervous laughter. Even Victor's smirk had curdled into something wary. Jennifer plugged in a remote clicker and handed it to Jacob without meeting his eyes. You lead. The system will do the rest. He hesitated before taking it. You're sure? I'm sure, she said simply. It's designed to survive arrogance. The line landed like a whisper wrapped in steel. He didn't argue. Behind them, Kimberly leaned to Elizabeth and murmured, She just called him out in front of his own empire. Elizabeth replied, and somehow made it sound like a compliment. The boardroom lights dimmed automatically, as the countdown began on the screen. A soft chime pulsed. Live feed initializing in 0130. Jennifer double-checked the connection, her reflection pale in the monitor's glow. Her heartbeat steadied with the rhythm of the timer. 90 seconds until the broadcast began. She adjusted one cable, then stepped back beside the others, folding her arms, her face unreadable. Jacob looked at her one last time. The arrogance in his posture had eroded, replaced by something else. Respect, maybe. Or the uneasy realization that every kingdom has architects the kings never thank. "Ready?" he asked. Jennifer gave a small nod. "Let's make it count." The digital clock hit 0. The wall-sized display flared from blue to white as the company logo filled the frame. A soft beep signaled connection. On the corner of the screen, a red indicator lit up, pulsing once, twice, steady. Live feed, on air. The boardroom filled with the low murmur of investors joining remotely. Dozens of small faces appeared in the sidebar, men and women across time zones waiting for proof that McGuire Innovations was still worth their millions. Jennifer took one silent step back, hands clasped loosely before her. Jacob straightened his tie, squared his shoulders, and turned toward the camera with a smile practiced to perfection. But behind that smile, behind the glossy facade of control, one truth now lingered between them both, unspoken, undeniable, glowing faint beneath every line of code. JD Encryption Systems, 2018. And as the red light above the camera burned steady, the story of who built McGuire's empire was no longer a secret. The red light above the camera burned steady. Live feed, on air. The boardroom transformed into a stage. The city skyline framed Jacob like a crown of glass and light, while his executives lined the back wall in choreographed stillness. A mosaic of faces filled the projector screen. Investors from New York, London, Dubai. Some sipped coffee, others checked notes, but every one of them was waiting for reassurance that McGuire Innovations hadn't cracked under pressure. Jacob's voice was smooth again, steady, almost rehearsed. "Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us. Today we present the future of enterprise security infrastructure, our proprietary encryption technology designed to make compromise impossible." Jennifer stood behind the camera's blind zone, just out of frame, eyes on the monitors. The system purred, all green, for now. Her terminal window, open on a side screen, showed the constant flow of server requests, normal traffic from connected clients. But then, like a ripple in still water, a string of irregular pings appeared at the edge of the data stream. External access attempts. arc42.capital.network. Arcanix again. Her throat tightened. "They're still trying." She typed 3 commands, running a passive trace, fingers barely audible against the keyboard. A back door in the system was still open, triggered remotely, likely from Victor's encrypted channel. If they hit it during the live broadcast, the server would loop a false crash sequence, making McGuire's network appear unstable in real time. The company's reputation would vaporize in front of global investors. Victor shifted at the far end of the room, pretending to watch Jacob's presentation, but his eyes flicked toward her once, just long enough to confirm what she already knew. Jennifer straightened, quiet, focused. Her hands moved faster. On screen, Jacob clicked through the slides with the effortless charm of a practiced showman. "McGuire Innovations has always believed in one principle," he said. "Trust the system you build." Behind him, Jennifer's command line caught a new spike. Unauthorized inbound signal detected. Vector. Victor Rivera's workstation. She didn't look up. Instead, she slid a folded notepad page across the edge of the table toward Jacob. He glanced down briefly, still smiling at the camera. In careful handwriting, it read, "Don't stop talking. I've got it." His pulse jumped, but his voice didn't break. He nodded imperceptibly, switching slides. "We've optimized our encryption lattice for global application. Real-time diagnostics show zero downtime across all frameworks." Behind the performance, Jennifer's world shrank to the glow of code. Her monitor bled colors: red, white, blue. Lines of countermeasure scripts clashing mid-transmission. She opened her flash drive's recovery interface, JD Mode 3.2, and rerouted the company's internal network through a temporary relay she coded years ago. A whisper of awe passed through the team as they realized what she was doing. Kimberly whispered, "She's rewriting the server live." Elizabeth added softly, "During a broadcast." The sabotage triggered. The main screen flickered once, then again. Jacob's voice faltered mid-sentence, only for a heartbeat. The investors' faces tensed. A man from London leaned closer to his camera. "Is there an issue?" he asked. Jennifer's fingers danced. "Come on," she muttered. Jacob smiled again, the consummate actor. "Ah, not an issue," he said smoothly. "A demonstration, actually. What you're seeing is how our live system auto-recovers from interference." That wasn't true, but it bought her 10 more seconds. Victor's eyes widened. He realized what she'd done. His hand twitched toward his laptop, but Jason stepped forward subtly, blocking him from the table. "Don't," Jason said under his breath. Jennifer isolated the command source and traced it back through McGuire's network hierarchy. The path branched, split, then converged on one IP. Rivera Admin. She captured the output and mirrored it to the live feed. On every investor's screen, the display shifted from the presentation slides to a real-time feed of the system log, rows of numbers and data trails unfolding like veins. At the top of the screen, a bright red line pulsed with the words, "Unauthorized access detected. Origin. Internal account." Gasps rippled across the investor screens. The feed's chat window exploded with questions. "What are we seeing? Is this part of the presentation? Internal breach. Whose account is that?" Jennifer didn't answer them. She answered the system. She executed her counter-command, terminating the back door and sealing the internal bridge with a hash key only she could generate. The red warning turned gold. Threat neutralized, and the chat window froze in astonishment. Jacob played his role perfectly. "And that, ladies and gentlemen," he said with a sharp smile, "is what we mean when we say self-healing security. You've just witnessed it in action." Investors began nodding, impressed. A few even clapped. "Brilliant," said a voice from Dubai. "Unreal performance," said another from New York. Someone from London muttered, "I thought it was part of the show." Behind the camera, Jennifer exhaled for the first time in minutes. Her shoulders eased, but her expression didn't soften. She kept typing, saving every packet of evidence, timestamps, credentials, connection routes, until the entire trail was documented and sealed. Jacob turned slightly toward her, his voice still smooth for the audience. "What you've just seen is the industry's next generation of integrity protection, real-time threat response, adaptive encryption, and continuous trust validation. Kimberly's hand trembled against her phone. Elizabeth's mouth hung open. Victor looked sick. Jennifer printed the trace log and laid the single sheet on the table in front of Jacob. Face down. He didn't need to read it to understand what it said. He finished his closing pitch. McGuire Innovations remains the benchmark for resilience, he said, smiling for the camera. We thank our partners around the world for trusting us to secure their future. The chat window flooded with applause emojis. Cameras blinked off one by one, replaced by congratulatory emails and meeting requests. The live broadcast timer finally turned gray. Transmission complete. Jacob lowered his microphone and turned toward her. For a second, the room was still again, like gravity was waiting to choose sides. You just saved everything, he said, voice low, genuine. Jennifer unplugged her flash drive, slipping it into her pocket. No, she said quietly. I just fixed what you broke. Victor swallowed hard, his silence louder than any denial. The evidence printout sat on the table beside him like a verdict waiting for a signature. Outside, the city lights pulsed against the glass walls, reflections of a company reborn through exposure, not deception. Jennifer turned toward the window, the skyline mirrored in her eyes. Funny thing about systems, she murmured. They always reveal who programmed them to fail. No one replied. The only sound left was the quiet hum of the machine that refused to die. Her machine. Alive and loyal once more. By morning, silence was the loudest sound in McGuire Innovations. The company's gleaming headquarters, usually pulsing with motion, voices, confidence, sat still under a gray Chicago dawn. The only movement came from conference rooms behind closed glass, where the board had gathered like surgeons over an open body. Jennifer sat outside that room, a paper cup of coffee growing cold in her hands. She wasn't invited in. She didn't need to be. Her flash drive, now sealed in a company evidence bag, was already inside, speaking for her. Through the frosted glass, voices rose and fell. She couldn't make out the words, but she could hear tones. Accusation, denial, defense, collapse. The sounds of truth rearranging itself. At 9:17 a.m., the door opened. Victor Rivera came out first. His tie was gone, his face ashen, his confidence deflated into a grim silhouette. Security followed 2 steps behind him, silent, efficient, final. He didn't look at Jennifer as he passed. He didn't have to. He already knew she'd been the quiet architect of his undoing. Inside, the board's chairwoman, a woman with hair like polished steel, announced the verdict in a clipped tone that carried through the hall. Effective immediately, Victor Rivera is terminated for breach of fiduciary and cybersecurity violations. His access has been revoked. Jennifer exhaled slowly. Her shoulders felt lighter, but not proud. Just done. By noon, the story had escaped containment. News outlets from every corner of the industry pushed the headline like wildfire. IT specialist saves multi-million-dollar firm from sabotage. Corporate spy exposed in live broadcast. Hidden genius rewrites cybersecurity playbook. A photo of Jennifer, taken mid-broadcast, her eyes fixed on the glowing monitor, circulated everywhere. Some called her the firewall whisperer. Others called her the code angel. Her inbox flooded. Job offers, partnerships, interview requests, and one message from an address she hadn't seen in years. jdynamicsfoundation@outlook.com, mail to dynamicsfoundation@outlook.com. The remnant of her old company's mailing list, now dormant but alive again in name. She smiled faintly. Even ghosts had ways of celebrating. Inside McGuire Innovations, the tone was different. The board moved quickly to contain the damage and the revelation. Internal reviews exposed everything. The erased patents, the buried acquisition clauses, the emails that had quietly stripped Jennifer's name from her own work 5 years earlier. The company lawyers called it an administrative oversight. The board called it a misstep. But Jennifer knew better. It was theft disguised as efficiency. And now, for the first time, the theft had a witness list. Jacob McGuire sat in his office that afternoon, blinds drawn halfway against the glare of downtown sun. The weight of headlines pressed against the glass walls. His phone buzzed non-stop. Reporters, investors, PR advisors. But he wasn't answering. His face was on every feed, every meme, every tweet. A still shot from the boardroom, Jacob smirking, saying, "Fix this laptop, and I'll marry you," captioned beneath, "When arrogance meets its warranty." He stared at the meme for a long time before closing the screen. It didn't sting because it was cruel. It stung because it was true. By late afternoon, McGuire Innovations hosted an emergency press conference. Cameras crowded the marble lobby, the same space that had once echoed with confidence, now pulsing with anticipation. Jacob stepped up to the podium, flanked by board members who had insisted he do this himself. His tie was gone. His voice, when he began, was quieter than anyone expected. "Yesterday," he said, "this company nearly lost everything. Its credibility, its clients, its core." He paused. Flashes burst across the room. "And the person who stopped that wasn't one of our executives. It wasn't me. It was Jennifer Dougan." He let the name hang there, simple and unembellished. "She's the reason McGuire Innovation still stands today. She saw what we were too proud to see, and she fixed what we broke. I owe her this acknowledgement, and this company owes her more than we can ever repay." Reporters shouted questions, but Jacob didn't flinch. "Yes," he said when someone asked about his "marry you" remark. "I said that, and I was wrong. Arrogance is expensive. I've learned that the hard way." The feed went viral within minutes, not as scandal, but as redemption. The soundbite replayed across networks. "She fixed what we broke." Viewers called it the rarest kind of apology, one that cost something. The next morning, Jennifer arrived at work to find a note on her desk. It was handwritten, folded neatly beside a new company ID card. The badge read, "Head of Cyber Infrastructure, McGuire Innovations." The note beneath it read simply, "I meant what I said, but you deserve more than an apology. Let's rebuild something better, together. Jacob." She set the note down, unreadable expression softening slightly. The office was quiet. The air smelled of fresh coffee and new paint. The chaos of the last 48 hours had settled into an uneasy peace. Jason appeared in her doorway. "They're saying the company's stock jumped 12% this morning. Investors think the live hack rescue was planned PR." Jennifer laughed under her breath. "Of course they do." "Guess you're a legend now," he said. "Any regrets?" She looked at her reflection in the dark monitor, where faint letters still shimmered beneath the surface of the screen. Her signature watermark, stubborn as truth. Only that it took a crash for them to see who was steering. By noon, the world had moved on to the next scandal. But within McGuire's glass tower, something permanent had shifted. Departments reorganized. Teams began citing Jennifer's diagnostics as new protocol. And when younger employees saw her in the hallway, they didn't just nod politely. They stood taller. At the end of the day, she stepped into the elevator, only to find Jacob waiting inside. He held 2 coffees, one already half gone. "Thought you might be tired," he said, offering her the other cup. She took it, still cautious. "You don't owe me coffee, Jacob." He smiled faintly. "I know. I owe you equity." She raised an eyebrow. "Excuse me?" "I spoke with the board," he said. "We're starting a new division, AI Security and Ethical Systems. I want you to co-lead it. Equal shares, full creative control." Jennifer studied him for a long moment. "Why me?" "Because," Jacob said, voice steady. "You built the system I took credit for, and then you saved it when I didn't deserve saving." The elevator doors slid open at the lobby, spilling golden light across the floor. Jennifer stepped out, turning just enough to meet his gaze. "Then let's make sure next time," she said. "We build it right." Jacob nodded once, agreed. As the doors closed, his reflection lingered on the steel, taller, quieter, reshaped. Upstairs, the glass walls caught the last of the day's light, reflecting a company reborn, not by arrogance, but by accountability. And somewhere inside its circuitry, invisible yet indelible, one line of code remained untouched. JD Encryption Systems, 2018. 6 months later, the name McGuire Innovations was gone from the building's glass facade. In its place, a new name gleamed beneath the morning sun. Dougan McGuire Systems. The letters were sharp, balanced, and deliberate, just like the partnership behind them. Inside, the once intimidating tower pulsed with a different kind of energy. The walls were no longer mirrors of hierarchy, but windows of possibility. The lobby displayed a new mission statement in brushed steel. Innovation means integrity. Every voice builds the system. At the center of this reborn company, Jennifer Dougan led the Cyber Integrity Innovation Lab, a program she'd designed herself. The lab wasn't just about technology, it was about access. She hired young engineers from overlooked communities, taught them to write code that reflected not just intelligence, but empathy, and gave them mentorship programs that rewired the very architecture of opportunity. Reporters called her the conscience of corporate tech. She just called it fixing the system from the inside out. The story of her rise had traveled far beyond Chicago. Universities invited her to speak about cybersecurity and inclusion. Companies modeled their diversity programs after her ethics charter. A once humiliated IT specialist had become an industry voice, calm, measured, unstoppable. But for Jennifer, it wasn't about recognition. It was about rewriting what power looked like. Every morning, she started her day walking past a framed plaque near her office door. JD Encryption Systems, 2018. The original code watermark she'd written years ago. She'd kept it there not as a reminder of theft, but as proof that what's lost can be reclaimed and rebuilt stronger. In late autumn, Dougan McGuire Systems was invited to present the closing keynote at the Met Global Tech Ethics Summit in New York. The hall was a cathedral of innovation, marble floors, glass walls, and 1,000 minds waiting to hear how technology could still have a soul. Jennifer stood at the podium in a tailored navy suit, her voice steady through the hush. "AI can learn patterns," she said, "but not principles. Systems don't fail because of bad code. They fail because of the people who forget to protect what's good in it. A murmur of agreement rippled through the audience. She clicked to the next slide, revealing a model titled Integrity by Design. Her AI ethics framework built around transparency, accountability, and moral algorithms. As she explained how bias could be measured and corrected at the code level, faces leaned forward, notebooks filled, and cameras flashed. When she ended with a line that echoed across the hall, "The strongest firewall is a human one. Courage, accountability, and empathy." The room erupted in applause. It wasn't just polite. It was thunderous. Even the most stoic executives stood. Some cheered. Others simply nodded in quiet respect. From backstage, Jacob McGuire watched. His tie loosened, his expression calm but unreadable. The arrogance that once defined him had melted into something steadier, humility wrapped in pride. He didn't step forward when the cameras swarmed her. He waited until the room began to empty, until the echoes of applause softened into the quiet hum of success. Later that evening, under the soft light of the green room, Jacob found her sitting on a couch, reviewing post-summit emails. She looked up and smiled faintly when he entered. "Didn't expect you to stay," she said. He shrugged lightly. "Wouldn't miss the moment that redefined everything I ever thought I knew about leadership." Jennifer chuckled. "You mean the moment your IT specialist outperformed your PR department?" "That too," he smiled. But there was no ego in it. Just gratitude. "You were incredible out there, Jen. What you built? It's beyond what I imagined when we started this." She nodded, closing her laptop. "It's not about starting over. It's about continuing better." Jacob hesitated, his tone softening. "You changed the company, and me, in ways I can't ever repay." Jennifer studied him for a moment, then said quietly, "You already did. You listened." He looked at her, really looked at her, and realized she wasn't just a colleague or a co-founder. She was the moral architecture of everything that came after the collapse. "I thought power was about control," he admitted. "Turns out it's about stewardship, about protecting the people who build the things you take credit for." Jennifer smiled. "The best systems rebuild themselves after failure," she said. Then, almost playfully, "Maybe people do too." Jacob exhaled, the hint of a laugh slipping through. "Guess we're both proof of that." That night, they flew back to Chicago together. The skyline shimmered through the jet window. The same city where everything began. The same tower still stood tall in the heart of downtown, but it looked different now. Warmer. Human. Its windows no longer reflected one man's empire, but a shared vision carved from failure, humility, and redemption. In the top-floor conference room, once Jacob's private domain, the new boardroom table was round, not rectangular. Every voice had a place. And at the head of that table, in meetings that mattered most, sat Jennifer Dougan, poised, calm, and unshakably in command. When she spoke, people listened. When she paused, the silence carried weight. And when she smiled, the whole room felt like something was finally being built to last. Outside, the sun began to rise over the city, turning glass into gold. A new day reflected across the skyline, clean, bright, full of promise. At the base of the tower, the new name gleamed once more. Dougan McGuire Systems. 2 names, 1 vision, no hierarchy, only partnership. And somewhere deep in the company's central server, one old line of code still pulsed quietly, like a heartbeat that refused to die. JD Encryption Systems, 2018. Legacy preserved, system restored, humanity finally debugged.